All right, mate. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself to everyone and tell them who you are?
Cool. I'm Jonathan Suckling. I'm an Auckland wedding photographer and a TikTok sensation, as my mum tells me.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. Where I wanted to start, as we discussed before, is where the business started. Like where you got into like properly being a photographer full time. Yeah. Where that business is. Tell me that journey. What year and when did it happen?
Yep, sure. It's been a few years now. I think it's almost been 10 years. So probably in the last year of high school, I picked up a camera and started taking photos of things. And halfway through that year, I came across what modern wedding photography was. Yeah. And until that point, I hadn't even thought of photography as a career. Yeah. I hadn't thought that it was something I could do to make money. And as soon as I saw modern wedding photography, I was like completely hooked on that's what I wanted to do. Yeah. And so from that point, the photographer whose work I came across was called James Day, a Sydney wedding photographer. Yep. And so I actually ended up hitting him up and going and spending 2 months in Sydney, working and learning from him. And then came back from there, hit up like who I thought was the best wedding photographer in New Zealand at the time, a guy called Jake Thomas. Yep. And I just bugged him until he let me come along to a wedding. And next thing you know, I did probably about 20, 30 weddings that first year, photographing with both those guys. And for me, I really wanted to take the time to kind of learn from someone who had gone before me to kind of give myself the confidence to go out and do it myself, especially being so young. So I went and did that. And then after that all finished, I actually also did like a year of commercial photography at South Seas, to keep the parents happy. I got the diploma, got the piece of paper, made the accountant dad feel safe and secure. And then after that, Jake just was like, you're up, you're ready to go, mate. So he just started sending me referrals. And off that, I booked my first season, probably about 20 weddings. Cool. And then, the ball's just been rolling ever since. So
that's crazy.
Yeah,
how old were you then?
I would have been 18, 19. Yeah.
That's nuts. Yeah. And so it's just been non-stop since then?
Non-stop since then, yeah. So I think my first proper season was probably 2014, 2015. Yeah. And so, I guess that's almost coming up to 10 years of wedding seasons since then. So,
just let me touch back on you said something interesting for me, modern wedding photography. Yeah. So tell me what's the difference? What's not modern wedding photography?
Well, I think there's two types. There's the wedding photography that we do now, and there's the wedding photography that your mum had, I would say. Yeah. And so I guess before I had seen what people are doing these days, all I had in my head was just whatever I imagined wedding photography to be, and that would be boring, stale, kind of stagnant images that didn't feel like interesting or creative. And then I think with the advent of the digital camera and people just being able to experiment so much more freely, people were just able to really push the boundaries at a wedding. Because before that, you'd have like 120 shots for the day, and that's it. So you had to be very safe and, in studio lighting and just be very careful with how you shoot. And now, some of my friends will shoot 25,000 frames per wedding, and just to really push the boundaries and kind of like find, some really crazy magic moment sort of thing. So I think that's what modern wedding photography is. It's just people absolutely pushing the boundaries of what can be done creatively on a wedding day. All sorts of lighting setups and just like ridiculous locations and things like that. So
nice. Why weddings? Why not like any other type of modern photography?
Yeah, well, it's because like what wedding photography was doing at the time was like pushing the boundaries so much more than what I thought a lot of other stuff was. Because I think fashion photography has been like very established and it's had a clear style for quite a long time. Whereas weddings at the time, I just could not believe that kind of quality of work was coming out of just someone's wedding day. And so I was just hooked on the style of photography that was in the industry at the time. There was things like tilt shift lenses, which kind of like it kind of creates that miniature effect and kind of has like a certain focal plane and has different elements on different depth levels all in focus together. Like all this trippy stuff was happening and really creative work with like LED lights and multiple exposures and things like that. And I think for me, like when it comes to creativity, I think creativity is all about like if you can use constraints, I feel like constraints help you to be creative. Like constraints yield creativity, I think. Definitely. So a wedding day is the ultimate constraint. It's like you can't walk that far from the venue. You've got limited options with lighting. You can't just like control every element. So I love like the improvisational nature of weddings and then trying to pull something amazing out of your ass like on a wedding day like that. If you do that in the studio and you've got 12 hours and you can reshoot the next day if it didn't work, that's not as impressive to me. But if you know that happened like in between them getting married and then going and having dinner that night, like that blew my mind. So I think that's what hooked me. And I just loved like I'm a real control freak, and I think I get paralyzed when I've
Yeah.
got too many options.
Yeah.
So I think the weddings were really helpful for me like that, because it's like I can't control many elements. So I just got to learn to work with what I've got, and I think that made like for a more exciting, like a more attractive
interesting.
field to me.
Yeah. Okay, there's heaps of stuff I want to ask, but I just want to get maybe like chronologically what happened, and then we'll pick it apart.
Yeah.
So okay, so you did your first season. Then what happened? How did things start to snowball?
Yeah, so weddings is very much like a word of mouth business, you know, because it's a high trust event. It's like, you know, it's like getting a haircut, but imagine getting a haircut for your wedding day. It's like you do not want that to be messed up. So I think people really want someone that they know their friends have used, and that they would feel they can trust on the most important day of their lives. So I shot 20 weddings. Each wedding has 100 guests. 100 guests see me doing my thing. And as I'm sure we'll get to, like, I like to do things a bit different. And I kind of came into it from the start with a fresh perspective on what being a professional might look like. And so then, you know, 20 times 100 people, you've got like, I don't know, what's that, 2,000 people seeing you every year, doing things differently. And I was kind of standing out from what they'd kind of seen previous wedding photographers at friends' weddings do. And so just from that, I think the word of mouth just naturally happened. And then, those people, oh, you know, this mate's getting married next year. You got to get in touch with this guy. I saw him last week at a wedding. He was amazing. And so, kind of just, I was just kind of busy ever since then. And there's a few, we can get into it, but I started filming some viral videos, right? I think my first viral video that I filmed was way back in the day. It was 2014 or 2015. And I threw my phone at the time to my flatmate. And I was like, just film this. And I think I had seen this like Vietnamese wedding photographer doing these kind of weird, like rolling on the ground and like playing with his legs, and he was going a little bit viral.
I remember this. Yes.
Back in the Facebook days. And so I just threw the phone, record this, and I just recorded one video, one take. That was it. Came home. The next day, I just uploaded it on Facebook, and I like went to go wash my car and just left the phone inside. And then I came back inside, and it was like at 80,000 views, and it was just like blowing up. This is when Facebook videos were really popping off. And so I was like, okay, that kind of just gave me the confidence that like I've got something that I can do that's going to pop off on that kind of thing.
That's crazy.
So from there, I just kind of kept on creating a few more videos like that. I probably only did 3 or 4 or 5 more videos throughout the years, and just put them on Facebook, and they went quite viral. Like probably had like over 100 million views on Facebook videos, like being ripped and re-uploaded and all that kind of stuff. Really popular in Russia for some reason. I don't know. I don't know why. Russia just love me. I won't say anything else. No comment. But yeah, so then after those videos kind of blew up, I think obviously the next thing that came around would be TikTok. I don't know how fast you want to.
Yeah, no, mate, you take it. I'm going to pick it apart later anyway.
Cool,
you go for
cool.
it.
So then when lockdown happened, I was just sitting inside. We didn't have much to do. And I thought I was too old at the time for TikTok. Like I must have only been 25, which is definitely not too old for TikTok. And so I kind of thought, hey, like I might as well. I know I've got this library of viral content. Like how about I recut it and repurpose it into like that modern short form video content.
Cool.
And so I just did it. And before I knew it, like things were blowing up on TikTok. And I think in the space of probably like, a few months, I got to 100,000 followers. Nice. And then like now I'm just sitting at 230,000, I'm just coasting. I've got a bit lazy recently. Been working on the business a bit more, but so that kind of has been like a pretty crazy journey. Like I thought I was too late to the game, but no, TikTok has still got heaps in it, eh? Yeah.
It's still so early.
100%. And that's been, and so TikTok was like the latest kind of reincarnation of all those viral videos. I'll say one more thing, and then I'm going to let you jump in because I don't want to. But like one thing I started doing is as soon as I realized that TikTok was where the money was at in terms of like the exposure and the views, I decided to bring an assistant along to every wedding. And give them my phone and just have them record the whole day whenever they thought something would be interesting for content. And so I was using that to create Instagram stories throughout the day as a way to kind of let people look into the experience of having me photograph a wedding. So kind of creating content there. But then also at the end of the day, I had all these clips that I could pick through and kind of repurpose and try and put into a TikTok concept or something like that. So smart. From there, I just had like heaps, like every wedding almost, I had something I could kind of cut together. And so, I kind of went gangbusters on TikTok for about a year or so there, and built up millions of views, and it really was incredibly helpful for my business as well. That was pretty amazing, the impact that it had there.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the impact a bit. So like, because with your audience, how, like, what are the demographics? Like, it must be pretty global audience.
Yeah,
Do you shoot around the world, or do you just shoot?
No, I shoot just in New Zealand.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
I think when I was coming up in the wedding world, a lot of people traveled a lot for weddings.
Yeah.
But for me, like, weddings are the vessel for me to have the chance to help people have fun. Like, I like to spread joy and make people have a good time, and also to create images that are valuable for them.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was never under the illusion that the travel wedding lifestyle would be glamorous.
Yeah.
I was just like, no, I just want to
way.
stay local, and especially like since COVID, like I'm really glad that I made that call, because it made things a lot more simple staying in New Zealand. But I think it's like 9% or 10% New Zealand, maybe like 15% Australia.
Yeah.
And then the rest is like America mostly and that kind of thing. But still massive. And I think as well, like, that's the demographic in terms of like the followers. But you know, I every wedding I turn up to, someone will come up to me and be like, "Hey, you're that guy from TikTok, right?"
Cool.
And like whenever I'm out and about, like, people will come up and say hi to me in public, and like I think TikTok's incredible, right? It's algorithm, and knowing like where the user is based, and then knowing, oh, this person's also here. They just filmed something at Auckland Museum, and then boom, putting it in front of them. So I think it's quite incredible how much it serves it up to the relevant people and the relevant demographics. Yeah,
absolutely. So when you think about that, then, because you're obviously already having a pretty successful career prior to that, right?
Yeah.
So when did TikTok start? 2020 for you? 2019?
2020,
straight away, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, straight away when it hit New Zealand, I suppose, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
And up until then, that would have already been 7 years of going hard already.
Yeah, exactly.
What difference did it make over those next 3 years? Like, and even just percentage wise, like, how do you think the business grew because of TikTok, or just because of everything?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'll go back a step and reveal a secret about myself. I got addicted to a game called Fortnite.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you heard of it.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so I got pretty addicted when my partner was doing her postgrad down in Dunedin. I just became obsessed with Fortnite, and I decided I wanted to become a streamer.
Yeah.
I was like building this character. I did like this deal with PB Tech and stuff. But then I kind of, I realized that I don't like the streaming platform, because it's like, it's tied to you putting the hours in to get the output. You know, you have to show up every day. And I was like, no, content's the better play. Anyway, I became so addicted to that game. And then I realized, okay, I'm kind of coasting on my business a little bit at the moment. And it's kind of, I had built up a lot of momentum, and I'd kind of met all my heroes and achieved a lot of my goals.
Cool.
And so I think that kind of sapped a lot of motivation from me, because it's like, what do I have to aim for now? And so I became addicted to this game. And then I kind of realized at a point that like my numbers, the bookings were going down, and I was a little bit less busy than I'd like to be.
Yeah. When was this? What year were you?
This is probably, I'm terrible. I've
so
got no timeline in my head, but I think it was probably 2 years before 2020.
Okay, cool.
Yep. In those couple of years.
Sweet. Yep.
And so my numbers were I was just coasting on that momentum, but not building anything new.
Yeah. Okay.
And so then when I realized, hey, I want to quit gaming, I tried to cut it out of my life. I tried to like do little steps, and and the only thing that ended up working was selling all of my gaming equipment. Like, so it's just not physically possible for me to play games.
Yeah.
And then I had all of this extra energy that like I had previously been sinking into like getting triple headshots and like winning getting the dubs, but then I was kind of like, the way I think of it is, it's kind of like I was getting all my sugar and my dopamine hits from gaming. And as soon as I took that out of my life, after a couple of months, it was quite difficult. But after a couple of months, I kind of recalibrated. Yeah. And it's like, where do I get my sugar from now?
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, my business, And so little things that previously hadn't been that fun or interesting to me, like sending invoices or reconciling statements or whatever, creating the next post.
Yeah.
There was enough sweetness in it because I was no longer on that gaming level dopamine. And so that's where TikTok became a new dopamine hit source. And I started getting hooked on like, going viral, building these videos, growing this content, and just really working on like sharpening and polishing my business as well. So I kind of went through a big period of growth the last 3 years, and kind of during COVID, which I think was a really good time to do it, because a lot of the people who have been in the industry for a while kind of COVID made things tough for everyone. And so if you weren't fully in it, you kind of dropped out. But if you're able to put the work in through COVID, when you came out the other side, you're swinging.
That's why we talk about off camera, right? Like the same as us. Like, I mean, we started in 2020 and just hit the ground running. And it just made it so much easier, because like everyone else was like complaining about everything. And I was like, well, we can do one or the other, mate. Like, get on with it or complain.
100%. 100%. So it was so TikTok blew up pretty big, and at the same time, I was just really focusing on my business as well. And so now it's come to the point where like, I'm just really stoked with like where my business is at. This journey was one thing I just love in life is like trying new things
Yep.
and then reminding yourself that you're actually able to break through that wall and get to the other side.
Yeah.
And I think it had been a while since I had done that. And so it was a cool thing where I was like, I'm too old for TikTok. It's already like had its peak, you know?
Yeah.
And then I just decided to just do it anyway, and then realized that like I was capable of doing it, and TikTok still had mileage in it.
Yeah.
And so it was a good reminder that like trying new things is a good idea,
Cool.
and that I am capable of kind of getting to the other side of things there. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Just quickly, one question with
Yeah,
the
sure.
gaming.
Yeah.
Did you get anywhere with it? I mean,
No,
you got
I think-
sponsored at some point, but like,
I kind of did like a bit of a behind the scenes, like
yeah,
I kind of went and got permission to film in like a PB Tech store,
Okay, cool.
dressed up in character,
Yeah.
and like. But I think the thing that stopped me is I didn't have the ability to kind of like cut that video content together
Okay,
at the time,
cool.
and I
Yeah.
think that was like a barrier for me. And I think because that kind of world of streaming and YouTube is often like higher production value,
Yeah.
it made me feel like that was too much of a barrier, and that
Okay.
stopped me from creating. Whereas TikTok, from the get go, I knew when I created my first video in 2014.
yeah,
Even though I have like professional camera equipment,
yeah,
I do not want to film it on professional camera equipment, because the second you see that shallow depth of field come up on your feed,
Yeah.
you're like, this is an ad, you know?
Yeah.
Even if it's not, it's a brand deal, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And so for me, it was really important. I knew from the start, filming it on the phone was the best thing to do.
Yeah.
And so I filmed all my videos on my phones, even though my partner's a videographer and has like great video kit.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, no, all on the phone, because it has to read as like natural and authentic. And
Yeah.
so that I think really helped me with like, and even cutting videos, TikToks together, you don't have to do anything fancy, you
Yeah.
know? It's just like a phone video.
Yep.
You can edit it on your phone.
Yep.
And I think the simplicity of that was what allowed me to break through and make this happen. Whereas
Yeah.
I kind of got too much in my head around the gaming and the Twitch stuff, because I was
Okay.
like trying to have the best cameras, and
yeah.
it was too much. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
why I kind of was able to make it through on TikTok. And
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
It's so cool, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And with the TikTok, like in where you're at now,
Yeah.
like how is the business now? Like from prior to that, you said it was starting to decline. You said
Yeah.
it's had massive growth now. Like
Yeah.
from a photography business perspective
Yeah.
and your sort of goals, where is it at?
Yeah.
What are you thinking? What's the future?
Yeah, I'm busier than I've ever been.
Yep.
I'm making more money than I've ever made in my business, and yeah, it's an awesome place to be. And I think when you're making good money, and at least I can speak for my business, I think it really empowers you to make the decisions that you might be too scared to make if money
Yeah.
isn't as stable. So when you've got more work than you need, or you're making more money than you need,
Yeah.
it kind of empowers you to back yourself to make certain calls. Like, for example, I no longer shoot weddings outside of Auckland
Yeah.
during my main wedding season.
Cool.
And before, it's kind of like hard to say no to the money, but now I've got like such a strong lead base coming from TikTok and all these
Yeah.
other things I've built up. I have the confidence to just like really be more you know, to I don't know, be more selective about the weddings that I take, and that's just meant a better quality of life for me. So now I'm focusing on doing only 8 hours of coverage at a better price point, so that I can shoot weddings back to back and not feel so burnt out, and like not traveling all over the country all the time. So just spending more time at home and like doing things that I love and that kind of thing. So
That's great, eh?
yeah, that's been like a huge thing. And yeah, I think my business is just stronger than it's ever been,
Cool.
and that's like a really cool place to be in. And it's yeah.
How is that like from a growth perspective, like for
Yeah.
you now? Like, are you kind of like in a good place, or have you got like some ambitions to go push again? Like,
Sure.
what's the goals?
Yeah, I think so. My partner has just transitioned to being full-time self-employed.
Yep.
Doing video.
Yeah,
And
is
so-
that on the Instagram the person linked?
What was that? Sorry.
On your Instagram,
Yes.
you got someone linked.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, is that
that's
your
the-
partner?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, cool,
There you
cool,
go. Happy
cool.
House Film Co.
Yeah.
So
Perfect. Yeah, I thought it
she's
might
been
be.
getting into that the last
Yeah,
few
cool.
years, and getting busy with my couples and that kind of thing. So I think helping her build out her business, and like as we transition to like better equipment and her growing her skills, I think, I don't know, even like the fact that I've spent a lot of time thinking about short form video content makes me curious about just delving into like helping brands out or whatever, doing some kind of deals and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I didn't really know where I am.
No, so like in terms of the business itself,
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
do you just like, you know when like someone's done something for so long, like
Yeah.
10 years or
Yes.
maybe 15 years, like
Yes.
they start to either get
Right.
burnt out, or they
Yeah,
start to
yeah.
think like creatively, they start
Yeah.
to look, well, what am I pushing? Do you
Yeah.
see that creativity spark still getting itched because you're doing the videos and
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah.
Or like, how do you think about that for weddings?
Sure. So I think for me, I'm really lucky that I've always had the desire to like make things better. So I've got a very active brain, and I'm always analyzing how could I have done this better.
Yeah.
in personal life and business and that kind of thing. So when it comes to photography, like you can definitely get to a point where you're coasting because you feel like you've got it, you can just turn up, you just do your thing. But for me, a really important thing for me has always been to have heroes who are further ahead than I am. And so I've got, and I've become friends with my heroes over the years, which has been really cool getting to pick their brains and that kind of thing. So there's certain photographers whose work I just find incredible. And so you can there's always someone out there doing better than you. And so if you can find that person and push yourself to try and create work like them, like I think I'm producing my best work I've ever produced. And it's been because I've been so focused on just trying to always do something a little bit better. You know, coming away from every wedding, like how could I have shot that dance floor better? How could I have lit things better? Or every wedding trying to try something new and different. And so, the video content creation has definitely been part of that, like trying to create next level video concepts. But I think I haven't posted on TikTok for quite a while. And I think I need to get back into that. But I think I've been focusing so much on the craft and the photos, which is like the primary product that I do sell. And in terms of growth, like I think I just want to pay off an Auckland house. You know? That's the
so you got a few years
that's the motivator right there. I'm like, if I can just be like mortgage free in like 10 years and like that would be the dream. And then I can just go do what I want kind of and pretty much make as much money as I can so that I can, buy a lifestyle that's going to be really fun and free, even though it is now. But I'd love to just have like even less pressure. And then I think, the next journey.
Please.
There's always something else.
I love it.
I think through COVID, I
was like, I just want to pay off a house and that's it. I'm good. And then the next journey.
No, there's always something else. But I think that like, so through COVID, it really made you think like it was scary times to be in the event industry in a time where events were kind of not happening, And so I started going on Seek. I was like, oh my gosh, like job finder, what is my skill set? Match my skill set, fill out some questionnaires. What could I do if this completely falls through? Because we're trying to get a house at the time. And but then I think. We're good. We're good now. We're good on the money front. But then, so for me, I'm always still thinking of like what's next because I think weddings is like a game which you only have so much time in. It's kind of a young person's game because it's tough. It's big hours. It's high pressure. That kind of thing. And I don't want to be doing this at like my mid 50s, especially with my antics and the kind of cartwheels and the moves that I do. So I think for me, the next thing I've been recently wanting to dive into is comedy.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I went and did like my second stand-up set last week.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and I think that obviously that ties in quite easily with
it's your
TikTok
brand's
content.
on point.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, and I understand how it works. And I remember like I listened to a lot of comedian podcasts, and one comedian was saying how like I just spent like $300,000 filming a special to release it on YouTube for free. And it's done like nothing for me. Like I should have just been focusing on clips. Like clips are where it's at when it comes to comedians these days. Like it was often traditionally a big thing to do to film a whole special and put it out for free and all this kind of stuff. Now it's just like just some crowd work, interacting with a heckler. One clip gets millions of views, and that's your next like 3 shows sold out. So
there's so many of those guys who did it even without a crowd.
Yes.
Like you can tell that they've just filmed it at home with a backdrop.
Yeah. So true.
And they're just got laugh tracks.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that is my plan. Until I can pull a bigger crowd. But no, it's like so comedy I think is the next thing for me.
Funny.
And I think that like I love entertaining. I love making people laugh. And so weddings is kind of like a really great, being a wedding photographer is a really great secret. It's like a great way to make money. It's a really fun way to live. It's creative. It's fulfilling. You're doing work that matters. And you're involved in all this cool like tech stuff and like art. And it's just it combines a lot of cool things. But for me, I think I absolutely love it. I love turning up to every wedding and I still love my job. But I know that it's just a really good tool to kind of give myself a base to build from, and I think I really want to try some other things as well. So that's why I'm going to try hit the comedy up.
I love that.
And things like that.
That's probably the biggest left field we've had on one of these podcasts.
Oh yeah,
I fucking love that. That's so good. I follow heaps of the comedians on there because I love what they've done. Like I love how they hack TikTok and YouTube. They've hacked YouTube and TikTok and they own it now.
100%.
Like that Andrew Schultz guy. That guy owns the world now.
I know. It's incredible.
What the fuck? Matt Rife. Matt Rife is like
Matt Rife. Oh, stop it. That guy like unbelievable.
He can't get less than 10 million views. Like.
Yeah. And what is he? Okay, no, I'm not going to talk shit on Matt Rife.
No, but he just heckles crowds.
Yeah, 100%. I know. He's just good looking and charming and a bit funny, and then boom,
Just sell out tours.
Amazing.
I realized he was in New Zealand not long ago.
Oh yeah, I didn't even know that.
like because he's a part of that YouTube series too.
Right,
There's
okay.
a group of them and they're a YouTube channel, and
Yeah.
they were like jumping off the Sky Tower and all sorts of shit.
Oh,
Like only
yes,
a couple of months ago. Yeah.
No, it's been incredible. There's been a few comedians that I've watched in Australia who have kind of blown up. Just over the last few years, and I remember some of them at the start, like we were at the similar follow accounts, and now they're like past 1 million. There's quite a few Australian comics, and then the funny thing is that it's like they became like a TikToker. I'm not sure if all of them started like this, but they just blew up on TikTok, and they're like, oh, I'm making people laugh, I should try comedy. And it's just like so backwards to how a lot of other people would have done comedy in the past. But now they're like able, because of this audience, they're able to sell out shows and go on tour. And I think it's so cool.
And they can refine jokes faster.
Yes.
Because, because like the old circuit is that you got to go every night.
Yes.
And in Australia and New Zealand, it's not every night. It's once every 2 weeks because there isn't enough open mic nights and stuff. And so it takes ages to refine your jokes. But now they're just like every day. Did it work? Yeah. Didn't. Try it again. Did it go? You know what I mean?
And they've got such a good job of like building the brand that people just love. They're going to turn up just wanting to laugh,
just to see them,
and loving them.
Just want them to see them. I love that.
You could do like Aussie man reviews, the weddings and stuff.
Oh my gosh,
that's what I was thinking of.
That's a good call.
So
I like that,
good.
Connor. That's, I need to like find. That's a great idea. I should try and like grab some inspiration from that
wedding fails and just all sorts of shenanigans.
Yeah.
That's funny.
No, good call. I need to get on my content game again.
I love it. Okay, that took us on a tangent, but I love it. What I did want to get into and touch a bit is about like a lot of times when I talk to young photographers or young people doing stuff like this, we've had a couple of people on our podcast who've tried to do wedding or photography stuff. It's like when you started versus now, like I don't need specifics because pricing a wedding, you probably don't just have like standard things to run. But how has pricing changed for you in your relationship to it since you started now? Because you probably had a really good education at the beginning, which is probably different to most people. But how was that?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to be guided by those mentors, and so I could get quite a good insight. Because a lot of people will start weddings without knowing where to stand and where to go on that kind of thing on pricing. But I think I think there's a lot of advice that old grumpy photographers will give to young budding photographers because they're scared that they're going to take all their work. They'll say like, don't undervalue yourself. You need to charge $4,500 for a wedding, even though you've never shot a wedding before, And I kind of call bullshit on that because I think that like, at the end of the day, you go and ask any of those old photographers how they started out. They would have started out cheap, shooting mates' weddings and building up the confidence and the skill set to kind of justify higher prices. So I started off like $2,500, that kind of thing. And now it's more like $6,000 or so for about 8 hours coverage. And so depending on like a few different factors, but essentially that's kind of like I think that wedding pricing. I think the beast of capitalism is making people pump out more work for the same price, kind of. And so I think that like when I started, people were definitely charging around $6,000 or so as well. And now obviously $6,000 is worth a lot less due to inflation. So I think that there's certain things like AI and different tools to make your workflow more efficient that kind of allow you to kind of shoot more volume at the same price. And so one thing I've done for me has been just increasing the price and dropping the amount of hours you get for that coverage. So just as a starting point, that at the very minimum, I'm working less hard than I did before in terms of like the actual pain of a wedding day, in terms of like the hours, because it's a lot of time on your feet, a lot of time shooting and photos to edit. But at least I'm getting paid like the more than I've ever been paid for the least amount of work I've ever done. And then if it goes beyond that, in terms of hours, then it gets even better. So I think that like, I'm definitely valuing my time much more than I ever have to begin with. And that just is so good for your mental health. It's like ridiculous how much of a mindset change it is. Even it's like if someone says that they don't want to do something, all you have to say is like, how much would it cost for me to do it for you? Money really can be such a motivator, and like walking into a wedding day where you feel like every hour of your time has been really well, paid for, and you feel appreciated on that sense. Such a different mindset from when, and I think there's like a quote from one of those amazing like Brene Brown TED Talk kind of things, and it's talking about how like resentment is when an unspoken boundary has been crossed. And I think that's often what we do as creatives is that we will walk into a day perhaps resenting our client,
Yeah.
but it's actually on us because we didn't do a
Yep.
good enough job of setting a price that we felt valued for, and we can't blame them. It's only on us and what we chose to quote them
Yep.
for. So I just think that now, especially longer wedding days, I've changed my pricing structure so that it's quite expensive to have me for a long day.
Yeah.
So now I turn up to a 12-hour day and I'm like, this is great. Like,
Yeah, it can pay heaps.
I'm definitely going out and eating brunch 3 times this weekend, you know? Like,
love that.
I'm getting eggs and avocados. But yeah, so that's kind of like
Yeah.
different mindset. Whereas before, I think I got to a point where I was a bit scared to put the prices up.
Yeah.
And then I started, like, you know, with inflation, I started being like, not as pumped to turn up because I kind of felt like I was being a charity almost.
Yeah.
And so having like the TikTok blowing up and other things I've done in my business to help it grow,
Yeah.
I think I had the confidence that I've got such a strong base of leads coming in
Yeah.
that I could kind of move that meter. And that's just paid off, really well.
How often for you is price the factor that they don't go with you? Like, what's the percentage of that drop off?
Yeah, I would say that like weddings is a small market.
Yeah.
I think especially in New Zealand, it's quite
yeah.
small.
Yeah.
So I think in Australia, I know quite a few friends who are like, you know, the best photographer in Perth or Western Australia, the best photographer in Melbourne, the best photographer in Sydney. And so they are charging like very big money.
Yeah.
And that's because there's 4 million people in Sydney and you only need 20 couples a year,
Yeah.
you know? Whereas New Zealand and Auckland, you know, it's a whole lot smaller. So I would say that like the reality is probably like 20% of my couples, maybe 30% of my couples walk through the door and they're not interested in anyone else,
Yeah.
you know?
Cool.
And for other photographers, that might be like 10%, but because I've been lucky enough to carve out a bit more of a niche.
Yeah.
But the reality is that still for most photographers, a large majority of your couples could book someone else if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Although I do find that like when people come to my Instagram and they kind of see like some of the behind the scenes from weddings and like that combined with the photos and then maybe like someone recommended them to me as me to them as well,
Yeah.
then those factors kind of combine into quite a strong referral and they're pretty interested in me.
Yeah.
I send my pricing out to my couples like on the first email inquiry because I
Yeah.
just get so many inquiries.
Yeah.
And so then I find as soon as that they're ready to meet me, I find that probably like 9 out of 10 couples will book
Cool.
me after a meeting. Yeah.
So they've seen it. They've already sold it into their head because they've seen the
Yeah,
price.
yeah, they're happy with the price. Price
Yeah.
isn't a factor, so yeah.
Yeah, cool. And there's all the social proof that you've got and stuff
Yeah,
like that. So I
exactly.
love it.
Yeah.
In terms of like when you started, so like 2.5K
Yeah.
sort of price range for a shoot.
Yeah.
When you think about that, like
Yeah.
you talked about being happy now with where you're at. Was it still the same then? Like, were you still happy, or did you just
Yeah.
yeah?
As a young
'Cause you were
person,
young,
I was
right?
young, you know,
Yeah.
and so to be making like a good salary off
Yeah.
the bat and not feel like I'm working because I'm
Yeah.
just sitting in my lounge,
doing
editing
your thing.
photos, listening to Spotify
Yeah.
and just, you know, doing whatever I wanted when I wanted. And then also being able to buy all these cool tech products that I'm just obsessed with. And then
Yeah.
it's a business expense,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that was like the dream.
Cool.
But then I think as I got older, I realized, okay, that was fun when you're 20 and all your mates are still in uni, but
Yeah.
you've got this income. But then I started looking at things like Auckland house prices and I don't know, like life just gets more expensive, I think, as you get older. And I just realized as well, inflation, like I was like, no, I need to be doing more than this.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of got that hustle to kind of build the business bigger and smoother. And I want, I'd like to get to the point where like, if I were to have a family or whatever's the next step, like I'd like my business to run really smoothly and for it to be this tool that really supports me to live the lifestyle that I want.
Yeah.
And so, a big part of that is, ratcheting up the prices and that kind of thing.
And you still think there's some room for you in pricing as well?
Yeah, I think it reaches a certain point. I
Yeah.
think there's like a tipping point. I think that like where I'm at now is pretty close to the top of the market.
Yep.
And I think I'm more expensive than most of the photographers I know.
Cool.
So price is definitely the thing that would make me inaccessible for some couples.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think that like, and the thing is, so because it kind of gets to that point, the only way that you can kind of increase your the amount of income that you make is to book more weddings, so like quantity. And again, that's only limited, like shooting like 30 weddings at like $6,000 is like, 180K, and then shooting 50 at $6,000 is not that much more,
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you start to recognize the relationship of your time input being tied to your income.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think doing things like maybe selling presets or a digital product, like an online workshop, education, that kind of thing, that's like so much easier to scale. Because if you can sell 1,000 presets for $100, that's $100,000.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like half of it. That's incredible. That's like,
Yeah.
so I think that's where I think I'm very happy with the income I'm making now. And I think for me, it's more just about balancing like the quality of life at this point and what's a manageable volume, which for me is about 40 weddings a year. 40. I did like last year, I did like 50, and that was just because of pent up demand with COVID and stuff and all this kind of thing. So I think I'm going to try and get to about 40 weddings a year. It's kind of like 2 a week max through summer.
Summer. Okay. Tell me about like the workload. Like, is it? I mean, you've obviously got your partner who does video, but is it? And you've got assistants. Is she the assistant, or
no,
you got another?
No,
assistant?
So we have other assistants.
Cool.
Yep. So someone comes along with me to every wedding to film all that kind of stuff, and they're kind of just there to help carry bags, bring me water, change lenses, that kind of thing, and kind of help me be present on doing the job that is most important for me, which is taking photos. And they can move my car, they can bring me a drink bottle, so I'm not doing that stuff. And that's just made wedding days so much easier for me as I get older, you know, knocking on the door of 29, you know, next year. But yeah, so and then in terms of the workflow after the wedding, there's some AI kind of tools that have been coming out the last year or so. So like quite a good photo editing tool that kind of gets your images to the point where like it's almost as if your camera has really good auto white balance, really good auto exposure. Nice. So if you wanted to, you could just deliver the wedding like that. But for me, because I'm still wanting to push my craft, I'm using the extra time it's created for me to spend polishing the images to levels that I haven't before. So just kind of tidying up backgrounds, things like that. I would probably say that in a few years' time, like if I were to have a kid or something, then I would be wanting to outsource all of that post-processing. But I'm still doing the selecting process, which is kind of choosing the best images. And that's like, it's just a mentally tough task. I shoot like 6,000 to 7,000 images every wedding. So it is just a lot of photos to look through. And I think that would be the thing that I would outsource next. It's just part of that letting go creatively, I think.
Is that, I was going to ask, is that the reason you keep it from a creative perspective? Or is it from a, like, both creative and a quality of output, deliverables?
It is for those things. And because I'm young enough and free, have enough free time that I can do that extra work. And like, I got a friend who just hired like a full-time staff member doing that kind of stuff. And they're paying like I think an 80 grand salary. And I'm like, I could do that, or I could buy a Tesla. You know, like it's kind of hard to if you do have the spare bandwidth for time, it's hard to say no to like taking on the extra money. But I think if I were to look at my business from like a more objective perspective, I would definitely be smarter to outsource the things that someone else can do, and to spend more time on the things that only I can do, which is creating these kinds of videos and stuff, and building my brand, and kind of maybe working on building a digital product or something like I was talking about earlier. But right now, I don't know.
It's like a hard thing to let go, right?
What was that, sorry?
It's a hard thing to let go because, like, it's like in my head, where I'm going now is like, definitely outsource that. Start building the community, probably YouTube or something like that to build like where you can sell these things. But like the 2 years it takes you to build that properly, especially YouTube, right? Like it takes, it's not TikTok. It takes a lot longer, especially in photography on YouTube. It's
so long.
But. And then you might be paying someone 80K, so it's 160 grand that you've given up over 2 years to build something that might not replace that for another 3 years.
And it's always tough.
A hard thing.
It's really tough when you run this business and you're kind of connected to all parts of it as like a single person business kind of thing. And so you're kind of, it's really easy to be like, oh, where could that 80 grand be spent otherwise? You know, like, it's a tough one.
Especially in New Zealand where everyone takes that 80 grand and they put it into property and that blows up.
Exactly.
And you just get
Why
rich
would
off
you build
property?
a business in New Zealand? That's ridiculous. Just buy houses.
Put them in property.
Don't get me started on that. I love that stuff.
So, okay, well, because that's what I was going to ask is like, what is the future, right? Like, you obviously, at some point, weddings are going to be too hard. Or maybe even just creatively don't test you anymore or whatever it might be, whatever the reasons are. And then you said like maybe digital products or whatever, but like, where do you see the brand living long term? Do you think TikTok's you're gonna keep going pushing that? Are you just gonna put it everywhere? Does it matter to you?
I'm not too precious about which platform I post content on, but I think what does the future look like is probably, I reckon I've got another 10 years in this if I wanted it. I think realistically, I should probably only spend another 5 to 7 years doing this wedding photography thing. And before I get out of that, I think it would be a waste to not capitalize on all the experience and the knowledge and the connections that I've built, and to try and create some kind of online workshop or digital product like presets or like photo editing software, something like that. So I think that as I kind of get closer to those years, I've still got plenty in the tank, but I think as I get closer to the end of my time in the industry, that's where I'll probably start to try and phase like even more like shoot less weddings, put the prices right up, and then use that as a tool to kind of carve out, you know, a whole bunch more time to work on a project like that, like selling an online workshop, and that kind of thing. So I think that's where is next for me in this business. Cool. And then at the same time, like I said, I'm trying to get into the comedy thing on the side. Course, and hey, maybe I'll blow up and sell a Netflix special, and then, you know, I'll just tell my couples, hey, you know, I'll just refund you double, and then you can I'm gonna go be a famous comedian or something. Don't know if that will happen. But yeah, so I think that's what's next for me is probably like keep pushing the craft, keep trying to do the best job I can, and then at some point, when it feels right, trying to capitalize on that, create some kind of product, and then on to the next thing, I think. Yeah.
It does seem like to me like it's that next step of like bringing on the help is the thing. Like, it's a hard, I know lots of creatives, it's like a real hard thing for them to do. And actually, I shouldn't say creatives, young business people. Like it's real hard. And I think especially when you started at 18, because you've only worked in your business realistically. That's the only business. So you don't know any other way. Except
so true.
you just grinding it out,
right?
It's like, oh, something needs to be done. Oh, Jonathan's going to do it. Like, there's no one else.
So true.
Whereas like when I started this business, I had just gone through 12 years of running hotels for a living, right? And they're like, in hotels, something needs to be done. Go get the person to get it done. And so like I was telling you off camera that May 2020 was my first client. The next day I hired my dad.
Awesome.
I was just like, Dad, I don't want to do the work that I just sold. You need to do it. And he's like, fuck, I don't want to do it. I was like, but like I need you to do it so I can keep selling. And I need it to be you so that I can fire you if this all falls over.
Amazing.
And you don't take me to your work or something like that. And he's like, whatever. So he came out of retirement, he worked from us.
Awesome.
But then like every time we sold something, it was like, who's next? Like, who do you hire next? And like, rightly or wrongly, but like, it's helped us build this, what we've got to now. Like, we're at 16 staff.
Awesome.
About to be 20 or so in the next month or so. But that's like, we're not even at year 4 yet.
Yeah, cool.
But not that like you need that, because you don't have that type of business. Like, you can't, the main thing you sell is your time at weddings, which can't increase. But like, how do you get like the rest of that shit? Like, tell me something, because like a lot of young photographers I talk to who do weddings don't understand the full picture.
Cool.
So can we like sort of like, this might be a little bit boring for most people, but it might be a good clip for people.
Cool.
Okay. Pre-wedding. Sales. Pre-sales and sales. How much time do you reckon you spend with people? Like you know, doing all the back and forth to get the sales done.
I would say it's pretty much like a half-hour meeting. So like one night a week, I'll do about 4 or 5 meetings with couples. So it's like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, like every Monday night. I just have 5 meeting slots available, and if anyone wants to book me, they have to meet me first. Sit down through that meeting, half an hour meeting, and then just a couple emails back and forth, and then they'll probably be ready to book me, sort of thing.
Cool. And then once they're booked, then what's the pre-work before the day?
Pretty much nothing.
You don't do too much pre-work?
Just a final call on the week of their wedding, just to go over the game plan and kind of, I get them to fill out a form that gives me all the information that I need from them for their wedding day. And then, next thing I'm shooting their wedding.
And then you're shooting wedding. And then how much in post?
I would say it's like probably 2/3 of the work is after the fact.
So an 8-hour shoot's like 16-hour editing sort of thing.
I would say every wedding is probably like 40 hours of work, maybe like a working week of work. And that, probably a fifth of that or less is before the day. On the day it's about 8 hours of work, but plus a bit of travel. Then after the fact, it's probably 2 to 3 days of culling, editing, and doing the final curation and bits and bobs at the end. So it's
40
a lot
hours.
of work.
40 hours is huge.
It's a lot. It's huge.
It's huge
for sure.
It's huge for people who, like we had a girl on here, Hannah, who I don't know if you saw, but she did like a TikTok wedding, right? So people are hiring her to make TikToks at a wedding, right? Which is cool, which is great. I was like, that's fucking smart. Like, just do that 100%. One little service, right? Cool. Especially like alongside photographers and stuff who don't do what you do.
I've heard about this in Australia. I didn't know New Zealand was doing it. That's cool.
So this young girl, well, like she started doing it. And she told us, she was like, okay, I've got my first wedding. And we're on the podcast. I was like, well, how much did you get? She was like, I think it was like $600 a day. It was $600 for a 12-hour shoot. She traveled down to Queenstown for it. Man. They paid for her flights and accommodation. And I was like, what? Oh, so you at least got something good for accommodation? She said, no, I got a $100 juicy pod.
Oh my God.
And I was like, wait, this
amazing.
is weird. So like, she made like, I don't know, $50 an hour in her head. She was like, $50 an hour, like it's good on 23 or something. And I was like, but like you still got to edit all those. Like you still not necessarily that she had to charge $6,000, and plus it was her first one. So I get it. Like you've got to get the runs on the board and all that sort of shit. And it's a new thing. But I think it's important for them to realize, like,
Yeah.
I think like you going, I started at $2,500.
Yeah.
That education you had from those other guys, so helpful, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because like that's way higher than I hear most people start off.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I've heard wedding photographers go like, oh yeah, I charge like $900 for
Oh
the
man.
wedding.
No. It's like, no, it's just gonna be dangerous. That's yeah, and I think obviously like as you find like when you charge more, the client will appreciate and value you more. You know, so it's the higher prices go, the better couples you attract.
Yep.
The more they value you. You know, they'll feed you, they'll put you up in a nice hotel, and that kind of thing. So I definitely, there's definitely like charging more is helpful for everyone, but it's just scary to do at the start for sure.
Scary to do at the start, right?
Yeah.
If you were a young photographer now and you're getting into it,
Yeah.
maybe you've done the training like you did with some people.
Yeah.
Where do you think roughly like is a good place for them to start?
For
Because
wedding
they're not going to be
photography?
able to do what you do, obviously, because
Yeah.
you've got the brand. But like,
Yeah.
what do you think these days is like the entry level
Good
for
question.
guys?
For a wedding, for like a standard wedding coverage,
Yeah.
like 8 hours, I'd be inclined to say about $3,000.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I think that's important for people to hear.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
I've heard them go a lot lower.
Yes, yeah,
And it's
yeah.
scary. It's like,
Yeah.
man, like I know you're young, but
Yeah.
like that's just not worth it. Go pack shells at Countdown.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget about the thing called tax.
Yeah.
Which
Yes.
essentially like the simple way to view it is it's like when you get, $3,000, a third of that goes to tax. A third of that usually goes to your overheads and your operating expenses, and then you only get to keep a third. So if you want to kind of create income for yourself, you've got to kind of create 3 times what you want to take home yourself
Yeah.
after the cost of running your business and paying tax and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that's something that a lot of people don't realize starting out. Luckily,
Yeah.
there's some businesses out there that make it easier for people to do tax and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But I think. And they'll quickly find out.
They'll quickly find out.
They'll quickly find out how much work is involved in a wedding.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's been one of the kind of photography fields that has continued to be able to make good money.
Yeah.
Because, well, firstly, it can't be taken over by AI.
Yeah.
In the same way that like illustrative or commercial photography can more these days.
Yeah.
But the fact that like a lot of people don't want to go and photograph a wedding. It's often the last thing on the list for
Yeah.
photographers.
Yeah.
And so the only reason you're doing it is because you're getting paid.
Yeah.
And so I think there's no illusions about how much work is involved and how high the stress levels are and the kind of expectations of the product and that kind of
shit, yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
people will quickly figure out how
Yeah.
much they want to charge and how much they feel like they can be bothered shooting a wedding for.
Yeah.
I think $3,000 is probably like a pretty standard
pretty
starting
standard
point.
one. Oh,
yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
With your pricing,
Yeah.
like your current pricing,
Yeah, sure.
How did you come to that? Was it purely this is what I want times 3?
Yeah.
Like how did you model it?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's really valuable to have relationships with people who are in your field, but not in your backyard.
Okay.
Because I think certain things like there are certain things that are a zero-sum game. I don't know if I'm using that correctly, but essentially if one person wins, another person loses.
Yeah, okay.
For
Yeah,
example, Google search rankings.
Yeah.
If someone's number 1, then no one else can be number 1.
Yeah.
So I think, anyway, the moral of the story there is that like I've got a relationship with a photographer who's not based in my backyard.
Cool.
And that allows us a really free-flowing relationship to kind of exchange ideas and
Yeah.
talk about things that are helping ourselves out.
Yeah.
And I think having that relationship has really helped me to kind of build my business and help each other copy ideas and give each other feedback and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
can be a bit more scary and vulnerable to be doing with your direct competition. Like
Yeah.
you might not want to call up your agency down the road and say, hey, what would you guys
Yeah.
quote and price for this job? It's a
Yeah.
bit more scary. But if you've got a mate in Australia who's running a similar business, you can talk a
Yeah.
lot more freely and exchange
Yeah.
ideas. So this friend of mine, we worked on our pricing together a little bit. And
Cool.
what I realized is, like I said before, I just wanted to be, as I get older and I put a lot of myself into a wedding day,
Yeah.
I realized the hardest part of me, for me, was just the number of hours I was doing on my
Yeah.
feet and like really being so socially engaged. And so I kind of dropped the base, the middle package, that what everyone wants to book,
Yeah.
to like what is a more comfortable amount of hours for me.
Cool.
And so as a result, like, at the very minimum, I'm doing less work than I've ever done before every
Yeah.
wedding day.
Cool.
But I'm also doing it at a price point that's, higher than what I've
Yeah.
done before. And then essentially if they add more hours past that, it becomes quite expensive, which kind of forces more couples to kind of go for a smaller package, which is what most weddings need.
Yeah.
And it stops me hanging around for 5 extra hours that I don't need to be there
Yeah,
for.
yeah.
So that's kind of like my philosophy on the pricing is trying to get people in the door, like by having a lower amount of hours. This is getting really nerdy. We can cut this if you want.
I love it.
But essentially, like by having like a lower number of hours that I'm offering. So most
Yeah.
wedding photographers will probably offer
Yeah.
9 or 10 hours.
Yeah.
So I offer 8 hours.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because why would I offer 10 hours if not everyone needs it?
Nah.
I would say probably half of couples might need 9 to 10 hours,
Yeah.
but the other half don't. So
Yeah.
why am I hanging around for another 2 hours that I don't need to?
Yeah.
So by default, I'm here. But because they're selling 10 hours at X price and I'm selling 8 hours at Y price, we still look on the face value competitive.
Yeah.
But realistically, if they want me for 10 hours, I'm actually up here.
Yeah.
Way more expensive
Love
than the
that.
other people. But I'm kind of getting in the door of that initial pricing, looking cheaper, but
Yeah.
I'm only cheaper if you have a small number of hours. And so as a result, like, that's kind of my...
No, I love it.
that's kind
It's
of
great.
Yeah.
It's smart because people, when they get into pricing on this,
Yeah.
pricing is the secondary thing. Trust
Yeah.
is the first one.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if they've already trust you, and then they compare the market to go, well, I trust this
Yeah.
guy, but I compare the market.
Yeah.
Look, he's on par with everyone else.
Yes, yeah.
Even though they offer more.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the same price.
Yeah.
Fuck it, let's go off him.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's smart. I like it.
Yeah, and it's just like, and I was trying to keep it simple. And I've kind of been more selective of weddings. Like, I'll only shoot 120 or less guest weddings.
Okay.
Because I just find if you've got 200 guests, it's like twice as many family photos, twice as many candidates.
Yeah.
Like, it's just more work, but you're not getting paid for more work
Yeah,
because you're charging on an hourly price.
Yeah.
And so I just decided to stop booking weddings bigger than that.
Yeah.
There's a few other factors that I've kind of like honed in on. Like, for example, this is really nerdy micro shit.
No, I love it.
But like being an 8-hour coverage, like there's a thing called first looks that people do in the wedding industry.
Okay, yep.
And it's where the couple will see each other before the ceremony and often do their couple portraits before the wedding too, which from a photography perspective is the worst time of day in terms of the light. So my package as well is helping me to kind of force couples, and I encourage them to when
Yeah.
they ask for my 2 cents worth.
Yeah.
But like the closer you get to sunset, the better the quality of light,
Yeah.
and the faster and more efficiently we can take photos, the more flattering the light is.
Yeah.
And so as a result, my base package kind of encourages them towards doing their photos after the ceremony, closer to sunset. So all my portraits are taken in nicer light. All my photos look better. Like it's just it's like a win-win.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
less
yeah.
work, less of a long day for me. So
No, I love that.
That's
That's
random.
great. That's
That's
smart.
random. Yeah.
No, that's really good because like I just don't think people hear this stuff,
Yeah.
especially when they start out photography
Yeah.
on their own. Like
Yeah.
because you're right, like the creative industries, all of them,
Yeah.
not just photography, videography, graphic design. You guys are so splintered
Yeah.
and separated, and it's scary to talk to each other because
Yeah.
it's like you're going to cut my grass if you know my shit.
Yes,
which
yeah.
is true.
Yeah.
And like I understand why creatives hold back pricing or
Yes.
hold back telling
Yeah.
stuff because
Yeah.
it's like fuck, I'm gonna get undercut or whatever it might be, and I get that.
Yeah.
But like because of that, it's like it's a double-edged sword, right? Because
Yeah.
then you also don't have the knowledge
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
what to do and how to push it.
Yeah.
And you're in a really good position, which I think's great. Is that like most of these young guys, giving them advice, like they're not going to compete with you
Yeah.
because you're
Yeah.
10 years ahead of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got 230,000 followers. How many
Yeah.
photographers actually have that?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's great, but like they need it. Like these people, because a lot of them are like not even making ends meet. Like,
Yeah,
doing it,
it's tough. I remember when I first got into photography, my original mentor James Day, he told me because he was the best in Sydney at the time,
Yeah.
and he still is
Yeah,
great. You know,
I know
and,
the name, yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
and so I saw his work, and I got to mentor with him. And I think I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's made it. Like, he's got the MacBook, he's got all the fancy lenses. And I was like, this is so cool. Like, I was like a kid in a candy shop. And he told me when we were driving to this photographer catch up, he's like, hey, I just want to let you know that like the majority of photographers I know are kind of barely making ends meet. And so that was like something that I've always had in the back of my head. He's like, I don't have any doubts that you have the capability to push through and make it to this end of the market.
Yeah.
But I don't want you to be under any illusions that like you're going to instantly be like creaming it as a photographer. Like it's tough as a creative out there.
Yeah.
So I kind of had that in my head that realistically, like to make good money in the wedding industry, you need to be at the top, like 5%
Easy.
of the competition for sure.
Yeah.
Everyone else, I think it's something that's really easy to kind of like be a weekend warrior in, have a Monday to Friday job and shoot weddings on the weekend.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that and it's such an accessible industry these days. So a lot of people kind of just barely getting by with photography, but I knew like I needed to make this stick because I didn't get like a university degree, you know.
Yeah.
I can't just
all or
go and
nothing.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So I was kind of committed to making it work and
I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, Connor's probably going to shut me off soon, so I want to get into actual
Yeah,
some
sure.
content.
Sure, yeah.
Tell me, you got that one that was like 14 million, just a little like
Yeah.
down a little bit.
Yeah, on the steps of
How many of that size have you had? First
Yeah.
of all, is
Yeah.
that one of the larger ones?
Yeah, that's my biggest one on TikTok.
On TikTok, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me, like, I mean, I know it happened on Facebook as well, but like,
Yes.
What was that? What are these like? Like, what was TikTok actually like versus Facebook when it
Yes.
went off? What were the differences?
Like Facebook, I would get like maybe like 5 inquiries a year.
Yeah.
And they'll be like in Australia, like, hey, I saw your video. I want you to come shoot our wedding and that kind of thing. Whereas TikTok, just the ability, it's really weird because I think generally you'd trust Facebook as like a more like stable platform where you kind of offer more credibility to the person's page you're viewing. But for some reason, a video going viral on Facebook, like you would never click on that video and go, oh, I should hire this person. Whereas TikTok, I think the ability to kind of swipe right and go to the profile and immediately see, oh, and I have on my bio, you know, based in Auckland, you know, like New Zealand wedding photographer, like just information about me that makes people realize, oh, I'm actually like a relevant product option for them if they're in the market for a wedding photographer. So I think TikTok's ability of its algorithm to like put you in front of people who are relevant, like people who are young, who are getting married, to the point where, like I said, I turn up at a wedding and people always come up to me like, you're that guy from TikTok. And I think, so I think that this video going viral, I probably had like 15 inquiries like within 2 weeks from that, which is just from a TikTok video, which it's just crazy. Like that is so much, like I shoot 40 weddings a year. That's like almost half of my income, you know, like that's insane.
What did you book out of that? Like, because it wouldn't have been 100%, right?
No, not 100%.
Not.
And I think a lot of people don't have like, you know, they see a video like this, they don't expect me to be at the premium price point, you know? But I would probably say that I remember I gave a discount to the first couple. I was like, hey, you're the first couple who booked me through TikTok. I'm going to give you $500 off, you know? Like,
nice.
And so like, I think in total, I did this maths the other day for a friend because he was like asking how important TikTok is. I've probably booked like 30 weddings from TikTok.
Love
like
that.
I'd probably say that like, and even if they haven't booked me only because of TikTok, it's like one of those like accompanying trust factors that they're like, whoa, you were at our friend's wedding, and then I realized you were that guy from TikTok, and then like I saw your photo being shared by like, I don't know, a wedding venue, like, oh my gosh, like we have to get you, you know? So I think it's been amazing for like, just, really boosting that clout and that street cred and like, even just like it translated through to Instagram as well. Like people kind of cross over a little bit. And
so, I was going to ask that. Is that how you built the Instagram? A lot of like, because it's quite high for a local New Zealand photographer.
Yes, I would say that like I can't remember. I was probably at like 10 to 15K.
Cool.
But like a lot of it.
Because your reels also pop off on Instagram, right?
Yeah, the reels pop off on Instagram too. On Instagram too.
Yeah.
I think I've always been viral, like from Facebook days. I had like 30,000 Facebook followers like 8 years ago or something. So that was like quite big back in the day, and that was because of viral videos. So I think that definitely I grew a huge amount of that following from these viral videos for sure.
Yeah, cool.
And I think it's a weird thing, like for so long.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Crazy. Sorry,
I love that one. Yeah, that was a funny one. That was like this couple, they like
so good.
They're absolute meme. They're a real memer couple.
I was going to ask how you got them to do that.
So this couple, they eloped in New Zealand, Danica and Liam, and I knew that they wanted something to go viral for sure. Like they're really into their memes and that kind of thing. So this is me popping a gritty mid-ceremony, but it was an elopement. So there's only like 10 people there. And after the ceremony, I was like, okay, we have to set something up. We have to do something. And I've got the idea because in the morning, the bride, Danica, she's like, oh, we have to do. It was at the time when the gritties were really going viral with that sailor person on TikTok, and so I was like, oh my gosh, like I literally was watching it last night, like just loving the gritty. So after the ceremony finished, I was like, hey, let's get you guys back in position and pretend that I was the celebrant, and then like just pop a gritty. And the actual celebrant at the time, she's like, oh, I'm not on the social media. Oh, TikTok. Oh, what's that? Oh, and then she just could not fathom the concept that like the couple would want me to do this, you know? So I kind of mocked it up.
That's so good.
But that was like.
You gotta hear the track too, bro.
Gotta have that.
Gotta have the track on it. You gotta play it again with the track. It's so good. Down the bottom.
But so like, and then just little signals like this wedding officiant, you know, like American language, because New Zealand would call them a celebrant, and then like making it look like I was actually.
Oh, no, it doesn't matter. Watch
That's
it
right.
later.
That's
You have to watch it later. It's so good. No, it's so good.
Yeah. So no, so Instagram, like.
Where like. I know there's like 5 times the people on TikTok, but like from a leads perspective, where does more come through?
I think that most of my I'll probably get like a few inquiries a week that have seen me on a viral video or TikTok or that kind of thing. But when it comes to weddings, it's such a high trust thing that like it will take the extra word of mouth or the friend's wedding I shot, that kind of thing. So I definitely find that like I don't get so many inquiries from these things, but these things inform their trust in me. And I think for so long I didn't it just, when you have lots of followers yourself, you just still feel like yourself, you know, you still feel like a normal person. And so it's really hard to realize that, like, I remembered when I met one of my heroes and he had 50,000 followers on Instagram. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe I'm having coffee with this guy, you know? And it kind of blew my mind. And then I realized, like, only in the last 6 months that, like, okay, like, that's how people are perceiving me. Even though I still feel like the same person who grew up in the same small town or whatever. Yeah. It's like so weird that, oh, okay, people are perceiving me because of these numbers a different way. Yeah. And so I just started leaning into that a little bit more. And yeah, it's just the clout, the social media clout. It definitely does affect how people perceive you. It's crazy, and are ready to value you or that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, no, I love it too, and I think that's a real good point, which I thought it would have been the case, and I wanted to touch on it. Is that, like, for a lot of people, your work spoke for you first, and then this informs that decision as opposed to the other way around. Yes. Which, like, same thing for us. Like, people see us on TikTok all the time, millions of views. Yeah. But then they'll be like, they'll meet me they've seen me at an event, or they meet me in person, or they've seen a LinkedIn post, and they're going, oh fuck, look at them on TikTok. We should reach out. Yes. Not because of TikTok, because I know him and his other shit. But fuck, they're crushing it on TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was really lucky that I had the business. I had something to sell before I went viral. You know, I had the product in place, which was my wedding photography. And then I started going viral in a way that related to my business, and I was able to convert those leads into income. So I was really lucky from the start to kind of have that structure in place, which is often the opposite of what people find themselves in. It's like, I'm viral, how do I monetize this?
How do you make money out of it?
So I was lucky to kind of have this going, and
That's also something, actually, like, because, like, we talked about that off camera a little bit, but I think that's right. Like, we're the same. Like, we hit the business first, and then we started going viral and things. And even on LinkedIn, like, I had the business. Well, I knew all heaps of people. Yes. They started paying us money, and then we started doing more and more content on LinkedIn, and then TikTok blew up. Yeah. So I do think that there's, like, most of the people we speak to on this podcast have got all the audience, and then they don't know how to monetize it. Yeah. But even, like, when I speak to you now, like, that's an interesting conversation where you're like, oh, sometime in the future I want to do some other things. Yes. And, like, I actually reckon that you're probably going to get to a point. I can see your brain. Like, I know, I meet people, and I know you're not going to sell presets because, like, in a year, you're going to be like, fuck, who needs presets? AI does all the presets now. You know, like, I know it, but, like, you'll figure out something business-wise. And it's the business brain that will allow you to do that thing, whatever it might be. You just haven't figured it out yet. But it's business, not quick money deals. Yes. Right?
Yeah, that is something I'm really grateful for because, I came into this, like, being very, very intentional from the start. You know, and it's like, if I can go viral on this, it's going to convert to leads, and I'm going to get bookings out of it. So I think that, having that business background is super valuable. Yeah. I think to be honest, like, the best way to kind of have a good insight on that stuff is just to ask good questions to yourself. Like, what am I trying to achieve here? Like, what's going to work best for that? So I think that, like, approaching things from a business perspective, and this is what my friend, who I've got a good relationship with, we always talk about stuff. He's just got a great mind for kind of really breaking down the core essence of what you're trying to do here, and then therefore what's the best way to achieve this. And so I think, approaching new projects, like, if I tried to get into comedy and that kind of thing, just trying to hack it, you know, like you're saying, filming yourself in your room with fake laugh tracks and that kind of thing is definitely like, you know, the way to blow up, and that's what these kids are doing on comedy. So I don't know what I'm saying here really, but
no, I think what you're saying is that, like, I think what you're saying and what you've proven is that no matter what it is that you do next, you don't need to have all the steps laid out, because what you know is that you'll be intentional with the business behind it. But as long as you do something that's great, and, like, the work you do is good, everything else will follow. It's what you did with photography. It's what you'll do with comedy. And I think you're probably smart enough to go, that sucked, let's stop, let's do a next thing. I don't, by the hour and a half I've spent with you, I don't think comedy's going to be an issue for you. I think you'll crack it, especially with, like, your ability to do the reels that you've done.
Thank you.
But that's it, right? And I think like a lot of people go into it going, oh, I've got all these people watching me. How do I sell them fucking drink bottles or some shit? As opposed to, like, being real intentional. Like, what do I actually care about here?
I think that when it comes to, like, starting this venture, like, there's the two ways you can go about it. And I think you just got to follow the path that has the least resistance for you. So if you've got an idea on like a product you want to sell, you can kind of reverse engineer that and create content around selling that product, and that will work fine. But if you don't have the product to sell and you don't know what to do, I think the most important thing in this industry is just passion and just being passionate about something. And just getting good at something, and then from there the money will come. You know, so I think if someone's like wanting to get into this kind of stuff, like if you're passionate about making videos, if you're passionate about, I don't know, drop shipping or whatever, like just follow the passion, and then the success will come, the money will come later. I think that's probably the best approach. So just get into it. Whatever's going to stop you from, whatever's going to let you do the thing, and not going to hold you back with over analyzing things. Focus on that, and your first video will never be your best video. So just create something, and then just keep going from there. Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. How long do I have left? Am I done?
Yeah, I mean, as long as you want, but I mean,
we probably should start wrapping up because I think we've been on here for an hour and 20.
I think it's a good spot.
It's a good spot. I think you're right. I don't want to cut off any further than that, and listen to this guy.
What?
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, man.
Cheers, man.
Appreciate it.
it.
Cheers, bro.